Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuckway Pints. Today we are down in the preservation station because yesterday I was out in the garden doing quite a bit of harvesting, as you can see here with some of our haul. And I'm down here to do a little preserving so it all stays nice and fresh for us. Okay, so today's preservation method for these, oh, there goes the grow lights on their timer. So today's preservation method for these green beans here, or yellow beans if you will, is fermentation. We absolutely love our green beans fermented, and just the taste is it's just out of this world. And not only the taste, but it's also so much more healthier, a lot more nutrients, vitamins, all that good stuff just gets amplified and multiplied throughout the fermentation process. So, which I'm gonna kind of show you a little bit here today. So I have about, I'd say 3 cups of green beans here, maybe 2.5 or so. I did wash them. I had them in the fridge overnight. Like I said, I harvested these guys yesterday and it was getting kind of late in the day. If you haven't seen that video, go check that out. Yeah, so what I'm going to do first is just I'm going to clip, because I like to keep these whole. You can obviously opt to cut them into like little green bean sizes, you know, thirds or what have you. You can do that, of course, but I'm just going to go ahead and trim where the stem end is, just so that they're a little more cleaned up, look a little better, because some of the little stems are still attached here. So I'm going to just kind of quickly clean these up, and then we'll kind of go over the supplies that we'll need for fermenting. Okay, so I have all my green beans all nice and cut up, all cleaned up, and now to talk a little bit more about the supplies you'll need for fermentation. Aside from dehydration, fermentation is probably the easiest preservation method, and like I said before, it is probably the most healthiest because it does the process of fermentation, just multiplies all the nutrition that your little veggies have to offer. So for fermentation, it is recommended to have a glass vessel, or maybe even like a ceramic or porcelain vessel. You don't want anything plastic or that's absorbent in any sort of way. So glass is always good. And then you'll need like a weight of some sort, because we'll be putting not only our vegetables in this jar, but we will also be putting liquid in here. And things tend to float in that liquid, and you want to keep all your vegetables underneath that liquid so no molding or anything goes bad. So you'll want like a weight. You can kind of get creative if you don't have any of these supplies, but this is what I have on hand. I have these little fermentation spring weights. So it's kind of has a little like hand bottom, and then the top is pretty much open. That way you can stick it down into your jar and it just compresses everything down to the bottom. And then you obviously use your lid to, you know, keep it all covered. Anyway, you have one of these, or what I also have, it's called pickle pebbles. They're from Mason Tops, but it's just essentially a glass weight. Pretty simple. Let's see if I can get it out. But yeah, just a nice glass weight. This one's the size of a wide mouth jar. They do have regular mouth jar sizes as well. But so that's what I personally have on hand. That's what I like to use. Works for me. I've seen people get kind of creative and use rocks, you know, put a rock in a paper or a plastic bag. I've seen people take sandwich baggies, fill them up with water, and kind of just put it on top or something like that. So if you don't have any of these specific items, I'm sure you can find something around your house or around your yard maybe, and get a little creative that way. But that's as far as the weight goes. Then you'll need obviously your lid, and I do have a couple different ones. They do have certain fermentation lids out there to buy. One of these is I forget what they're called, but it's by Mason Tops. I forget like what they call it, but it's essentially like a silicone little nipple, I guess, if you will. But it just, they have different sizes to fit on top of you know, your jar. But essentially you have this here. You would take your band, place it over, and this little like nipple has a cut through it, almost like a baby bottle, and it allows the gases to escape, because during the fermentation process you'll notice a lot of bubbles and kind of some fizzing going on. That's the process, and those gases will build up. So say you have a regular lid and band on here, you'd want to come to it daily and, you know, open it up, kind of burp it. But with these lids here, these little, you know, tops, they have a little opening here and the air just pushes right out. So you don't have to worry about burping it every day or a couple times a day, depending on what it is. So these are really handy. That way you don't have to stay on top of things, especially if you're super busy, got a lot of other things going on. And again, this is by Mason Tops. And then there's another similar type of lid. It's supposed to do the same thing. This is by Ball. It's like your typical plastic reusable lid, but it has a little gasket on it. And again, there's 4 holes and then a rubber gasket, and it just allows air to pass through from inside out. And it's kind of nice because both of these seal up nicely as far as these little air ports go. That way no bacteria, no dust or anything enters in the jar, contaminating your fermentation. So I think they both work very nicely. I've had successes with both of them. I kind of just interchange through them both. It just depends if I got a lot of fermentation going on. So there's that as far as your supplies. Onto the actual process itself. So in order to properly ferment green beans, you'll want to obviously load your vessel, of course. And you don't have to put them in any particular way. You just want them in there and have them fit nicely. And yeah, ensure that they're all pretty much in there. That way you can guarantee that the water, the liquid that we will put in, will cover them all completely, because you don't want anything to expose, because that could open up the potential for molding, and we don't want that. So I'm just making sure everything's kind of tucked in here nice, and that also allows for nothing to start floating up. Hopefully everything's kind of pushed and wedged in here properly. And before I forget to mention, with this process, you can kind of add any sort of seasonings you want. If you like to throw in some garlic, go for it. Maybe some dill, peppercorns, whatever. Pickling spice if you wish. But you can kind of spice up the flavor a little bit more, give it a little extra profile. But I think today I'm just going to kind of do plain. Otherwise, I typically like to add maybe some dill, maybe some garlic. Those are always my go-tos. But today I think I'm just going to do just plain, because it's still good either way, because that process just gives it that nice flavor. It's really hard to explain. So anyway, so we have this, and for the brine, you want to make yourself a saltwater brine in order for this process to work successfully. And each vegetable has a different percentage brine requirement. And for the green beans, it's a 2% brine. And for 4 cups of water is what I've already mocked up. Requires 19 grams of salt. So, and I already took the liberty of doing that already. And what you want to do is take your water and your salt and warm it up on the stove. Make sure all that salt is nice and dissolved into the water. And then kind of let it cool down a little bit. You want to pour in really, really hot water in here. Not only will it kind of start essentially like cooking your vegetables, but you don't want to shock your vessel. You don't want anything cracking or breaking on you. So I already took the liberty of actually warming up, dissolving my salt and all that, and it's still a little bit warm, but it's cooled down enough to where I think I can actually add it in here. So what I'm going to do is quickly grab a funnel and then add in my liquid. Okay, so here we are. Everything's pretty much covered up. You can see a couple that are still poking out. So what I'm going to do is just take a little utensil here, see if I can kind of push them in a little further, because it's just the tips that are poking out. And then now what I'm going to do, now I kind of loosened everything up and now everything's kind of floating to the top. But that's okay, because that is where the weight comes in. And I think for this one, I'm going to use the glass weight. Well, let's try the spring one. If the spring one doesn't work out, then we'll use the glass one. Because it does depend on what you're fermenting. Certain things are bigger chunks. Certain things are smaller chunks. So it depends on, especially with these being two different styles. So sometimes you just have to kind of play with it, make sure it all fits accordingly. And that looks pretty good. I think if anything, I might double up, which there's nothing wrong with that. Go with the one weight. And then push this weight down on top. That way it kind of adds on. And then I'm just going to go and use this ball lid. That way I can ensure that the spring is pushed down in there and it won't be pushing up onto this, because this is a little more flexible. So, but it looks like everything is covered. It looks pretty good to me. So all I have to do now is label and date this and set it down on my countertop and just kind of let it do its thing for a few days. After about, I don't know, 3-4 days, I will take one of these guys out and just do a little taste test. And if it's to my liking, to the right flavor, then I will go ahead, put it into the refrigerator. And by doing that, it kind of pauses the fermentation process. So that way it doesn't continue to get a little more fermented, because if you were to let it sit out, it'll really start fermenting and it'll kind of get, the taste will kind of intensify. So you want to, make sure after a couple days, you'll start noticing some bubbles after day 1, maybe day 2. And yeah, after a couple days, you'll want to taste it, make sure that it's to your liking. And once it is, then yeah, pop it in the fridge and it's ready to go, So otherwise, yeah, that is pretty much it, I believe. I don't think I left too much out as far as the process here goes. So thought it'd be kind of cool just to show you a little bit more about the preservation process and the different processes, different methods that I'm going to be doing here on the homestead with all the different crops that we're bringing in. So things are really starting to pick up outside in the garden, so it's really time to get rolling on harvesting and preserving everything. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave me a comment. I'd like to know your favorite preservation methods. What's your go-to? And if you haven't subscribed already, please do, so you don't miss out on any other fun preservation videos we do here on the homestead. All right, thank you again, guys. Bye.